I'm going to say something that I said at the beginning of the pandemic in a way to communicate to adults about the leadership that we have as role models to children. That's important now just as much as it was important then, just as much as what it was important 1,000 years ago. There will be hard times at all times. There will be people suffering endlessly, constantly, depending on what we want to focus on. And children take ownership by watching us take ownership. They take responsibility by watching us take responsibility. And in times of stress and overwhelm, it's important to not become overwhelmed or stressed out in a way to where we cannot handle our lives. And there's only so much we can do and not get so caught up in stressful, chaotic, endless complaining or being stressed out by all the many things in the world. We can only do so much in our sphere of influence. We can only do so much to impact our local communities or even just our own families. And if we try to focus on everybody else that's flying in the same airplane that we are, and when the oxygen masks go down, we need to grab an oxygen mask. And we need not complain about everybody else not grabbing their own oxygen mask or making sure their oxygen mask is on properly. Once we have our oxygen mask on ourselves, then we can help everybody else. Then we can have an opinion. Now, I say all this because whenever it comes to all the many things that we can get all riled up about and stressed out about and complain about online, because everybody's dealing with struggles right now in many different ways for different reasons, whether it's the latest and greatest complaint about gas prices or food prices or the latest and greatest controversy of today that I could get into, but I won't here. I think it's important to notice it's going to happen no matter what. And you just have to roll with the punches and decide what you want to really focus on. And I think a lot of times we as humans, we would like to get caught up in everything in order to fight for what we believe in and to really tell the world what we think is right. But it's not necessary, especially in ways that don't really make an impact. I personally have never seen social media or social networks interact in a community with individuals speaking to one another or speaking at one another, rather, online to reach greater communication or to reach greater insight together. There's a bunch of bees around me, so I have to switch gears here. Okay. So I just think it's important to notice how we respond to our environments rather than react. And whatever's going on in our lives, whether it's super stressful or not, we have a responsibility to respond appropriately in our environments, as well as help lead our kids in the right direction as far as how do you manage a life? How do you manage the ways of the world? How do you manage the changing tides and the changing colors of the leaves on the trees? Now, if things are super stressful and chaotic and crazy, do you want to focus on that all the time? Or do you want to say, this is what I care about, this is how I can contribute, this is how I can gather a little bit of control and actually let go and surrender a little bit of the things that I cannot control and then have faith and trust and courage walking forward. I mean, courage and bravery have become so demolished in a way that where language is important, but courage and bravery are so important because they're lost in today's era. They're lost in today's era because we've made it out to be some sort of arrogant ruler kind of style, whenever courage and bravery is not necessarily an arrogant ruler of the stereotypical king who just wants to kill everybody in other nations nearby. That's not what courage and bravery is. It's actually just like simply taking the first step on a stairwell that you don't know where it leads to, or walking into a room that's dark in order to go find where the freaking light is at. So you got to find out where the light switch is, or to pull the light down from a ceiling fan that's nearby that you know kind of where it's at, but you don't know exactly where it's at because it's dark in the room. And it takes a little bit of courage and bravery. You might misstep, you might bump your toe on a desk, but you still got to get through it in order to shine a light, in order to actually see the reality of the situation, to see what's going on down the road. You have to have a little bit of faith. We have to have a little bit of trust, at least, to help get us through. And, I mean, to just scope out with the big picture, to realize our context, the ways of the world today, it might seem crazy. It might even feel like an apocalypse. But it's also felt like an apocalypse at many other times in our lives as humans. Now, history didn't start yesterday, and it didn't start last week. If you actually look back in history and take notice of how humans interact, most of the things that we're being challenged by today in human societies, in our culture, are things that have been around, that humans as a species have been challenged by for a long time. Now, the degradation that we've applied to our planet is very different today than what it has ever been in years past, generations past, millennia past. That's a conversation maybe we can have. But many of our cultural problems, many of our issues of psychological conversations are not necessarily psychological conversations. It's more, I don't even know, it's more just complicated, problematic, low critical thinking, simplistic frustrations with individuals who do not have the greatest capacity for long-term thinking or long-term self-interrogation for a lot of things with safety and security with other people. And I'm not placing people in a container, but I will recognize the scientifical reality. Scientifical? That's not a word. But I will recognize the reality that there are certain things in our environment that make it a much greater difficulty to have an empathetic conversation, to help people overcome complicated, messy, controversial, difficult, sometimes destructive differences of opinions and experiences and even language and etymology of what we expect our language to mean. And I say all this, again, to coming back with a concept around children and how we show children how to interact in the world around us. Children are, in my opinion, sacred, innocent, pure, and beautiful. I've had many people tell me in my life, children are evil and crazy and demonic and strange. I just don't have that same opinion. I understand children can be troublesome, yes, and they can be energetic, and they can be difficult sometimes to manage in our stereotypical norms of today. But we don't make it easy for them. Same thing with adult humans. We don't make it easy for adult humans to thrive either. But for children, they need safety and security and psychological safety and emotional security in order to have any frame of mind to take on any next step of their life with bravery and courage and faith and trust, and honor the beauty that will become of their butterfly as they mold outside of their cocoon. I mean, it is the way of life. Instead of suggesting that we all need to stay in our cocoons and to be crazy and chaotic and stressful and manic and strangely excited about every single thing that we see on the news, instead of our cocoons, it's actually a beautiful thing to go through hard times. If you want to do something significant and meaningful, you're not going to be able to do it alone, and it's going to take some hard work, some sweat, some grit, some failures along the way. You might stumble, you might fall, you might need someone to help you get back up, like on a marathon. It's going to take some training. It's going to take other people to hand you water and electrolytes and food and many days and weeks of training. You might hurt yourself. You might get injured. But if you don't take the first step, and if you don't have a struggle, you won't care about where you get to on the other side of that struggle. You won't believe in yourself for the next big wave that comes to hit you. If you take little baby steps to strengthen your abilities to take greater leaps in your life, then you can have courage, then you can have bravery, then you can have trust in yourself to take on the next strangest, craziest, most burdensome thing in their life. And children have to see that. I'm sorry, but all of our insecurities cannot hide behind the scenes. And I'm not saying that we need to be crazy and chaotic and stressed out and walking in disbelief, which is honest, imposter syndromes and the like. We don't need to throw all that out and project it onto our children in our lives. But it is important to acknowledge the reality that sometimes we question ourselves. Sometimes we are hesitant to take on the next challenge, but we still take on the next challenge with courage and bravery because we believe in ourselves. And yes, sometimes we screw up, sometimes we fall, sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's difficult, sometimes we sweat, sometimes we bleed, sometimes we fail, and fail, and fail, and fail. But we keep trying, and we keep going. And if it's hard as an adult and in your life, and you have a child in your life, don't hide that. Don't hide that from them, because they're a lot smarter, wiser, stronger, probably even more courageous than what you give them credit for. And kids are mighty in their mind and their spirit inside of them. They're beautiful human beings if we can just give them the chance to rise up to be the beautiful butterflies and whatever else can come out of a cocoon. I don't know. I mean, I just think that a lot of times we try to hide everything from kids, and then they don't have the chance to take responsibility at a young age. They don't have the chance to grow into maturity and to see the realities of life at a young age, to see what it takes to have good things like sleep and health and holistic stability, mind, body, spirit, what it takes to raise a family, what it takes to raise a child, the interconnectedness that we require in our communities, because it does take a village to raise a child. A child, I said that with a southern slang. Don't know where that came from. And if we hide that from them, and we live in a world where we have 1 or 2 day shipping, and we have instant gratification feeding us instantaneous, infinite lines of consumerism at every single day, and our economies rely on consumerism, incessant consumerism, it's going to crumble if that's a business model we think that we need to live our lives by, which is probably mostly incorrect. And kids need to see the struggle because they need to see how to be strong. And you cannot be strong if you do not struggle, because really you have no strength if you cannot struggle and overcome. Because if you've only struggled very minimally, then you only know your strength to be very minimal. Yet, if you struggle with great hardship, you are that much more stronger for whatever you take on in the next stage of life. And if you walk a mile, then you challenge yourself to a 5K. Once you run a 5K, then you challenge yourself to a mini marathon. Once you challenge yourself to a mini marathon, and you do that, you might challenge yourself to a marathon, and so on. Now, we don't all have to be runners. It's just a metaphor that I hope you've understood along the journey of the metaphor, of the run, so to speak. Now, again, going back to kids, because that's one of the main reasons why I even have anything ever to say. Because I know at some point I'm not going to be walking on this planet, but hopefully at some point along the way, something I have said or something I have done or something I have interacted with in the world around me, whether it's the bird I'm looking at now or the squirrel across the way, or people and opportunities and places I've gone, maybe that impact can positively improve another person's life. Whether I have any idea how that might look or not, I don't know. It's not my responsibility. It's not my ability to know what that looks like. But at least I'm going to try, because I'm trying to be honorable with the breath that I have in my lungs. And not everyone has that breath in their lungs. And it's a struggle for many, many people. Not many people have the blessings that I've been able to have. And I take that with a great deal of respect and honor to everyone else. And I understand that I don't have the same privileges or gifts or abilities that other people do. We're all beautiful, different, broken, yet beautiful human beings. And so with children, don't hide the struggle from them, or they will not be able to find their own strengths to help you and everyone else come together to be stronger together. Because if they don't see struggles, then they don't know where they can be strong. Because it's in the gaps where we can be the glue, and we can actually be better together once we see the gaps and step into the gaps. If that makes any sense. And I hope it does. Because if we hide away from the realities and the depravities, then there's no chance in the world anyone would ever step in to help. If we've fallen and we can't get up, would anybody come if we don't ask for help, or if we're not connected to our community, or if we don't have somebody that comes on a regular basis to come check up on us? If we fall and we can't get up, and we don't ask for help, and we don't call on somebody else for help, and no one else sees the gap that we fall in, no one would step up. No one would be there. And we would crumble as a society. So kids need to see the gaps. They don't need to be overwhelmed and stressed out and pressured into seeing the gaps. They don't need to be expected to be superheroes. But they need to be given the chance to believe in themselves, and with the honest respect and integrity to explore their gifts and their abilities and their interests to be the beautiful flying butterfly that they can be, to show off whatever gifts and crazy creativities that they can give us. Because they're all super different and they're all going to be super amazing people in their own way if we give them the chance that I believe they deserve. And if they see the opportunity to give and to serve and to be a gift in this world, most people will take that opportunity, because they get some sort of energetic positive reinforcement that entices them even further. And for something deep inside of us, we think, oh shoot, that was a good experience. I kind of like this thing called helping someone in a time of need, or helping another human, helping someone to get back up on their feet. And that's something deeper that lives inside of us as human beings, as holistic, mind, body, spiritual creatures. And we can't run away from that. And we can't hide away from that. Because that strength comes from noticing the struggle. So whether it's you, or your friend, or your family, or your elder, or your child, the struggle is real, but so is the strength.